Every year, XXL compiles a list of newish artists that they feel fit their criteria of being in the freshman class of that year. And 2021 is no different, with them recently putting out their freshman list or freshman class of 2021. And per usual, people have their own thoughts and opinions regarding this list because that's just kind of human nature. We all have opinions when lists like this come out. So, welcome to the Bar for Bar podcast, and this week I'm going to talk about my opinions on the freshman list of 2021 and kind of a little bit about what their criteria may have shifted to over the years. So, to start things off, the freshman class of 2021 includes Moray, Ian Dior, Lakia, DDG, 42 Doug, Ruby Rose, Blast, Push Ice-T, Tusi, Coileray, and Flo Millie. Prior to this list, the only person that I honestly have not heard of was DDG, Ian Dior, and Lakia. Everyone else I've heard in passing, not really listened to anyone else's music though. And as far as people who I've actually heard from this list, it was really just Moray and Push Ice-T because of the Back in Blood track. And Coileray because you kind of can't avoid her online. That's just one of those people that's just everywhere right now. I mean, among these other people. And that's kind of where I feel this list came about. So, in my opinion, this list isn't anything crazy. So, because in my mind, with the freshman class lists in the past, like not even the last couple years, like years ago, their main focus was to put on artists who have lyrical ability or display some type of skill. And it's more so that these are artists who may not have the most attention, but artists that we should be looking for. This slowly started to change over the years. I'm not exactly sure when it did, maybe like 2016 or so. But over time, we started to, actually no, maybe not even that late. It might have been kind of going on throughout the whole time, but it wasn't as obvious. But what I was going to say is that they started to include more artists who have somewhat of a buzz. And like they may have one hit out and they're like, oh, this is someone to maybe draw attention. And I get that. That makes a lot of sense. But they did not always fit the list, in my opinion. Like, with everyone else included. Because like I said, for me, it was originally meant to be more artists who are, I guess, in the underground or recently signed. And people that we were just supposed to be looking for. Like, you know, they're going to be good. Not necessarily, yeah, good is subjective, I guess. But in my mind, good being they're lyrical or they just have some sort of skill that would make you interested in listening to them. So, I mean, we can go back to the beginning, which I think was like 2007. 2007. We had Saigon, Plies, Rich Boy, Lupe, Lil Boosie, Gorilla Zoe, Joel Ortiz, Crooked Eye, Papoose, and Young Dro. Now, that does kind of sound like there's a mix of both lyrical and more popular sounds, I guess you could say. And yeah, that makes sense because, like I said, they probably want to just draw attention to this particular issue first. But realistically, these are all just rappers who were doing something at that time. That it sounds vague. Like they all had somewhat of a buzz, but for different reasons. And these are not necessarily people that everyone would have heard of at that time. So, for example, not many people would have heard of Crooked Eye or Joel Ortiz. Like, at that point in time, this was like right before Slaughterhouse. And even Slaughterhouse was just super obscure. Like, not many people, like, in terms of like general public, would have heard of Slaughterhouse. So having them included on this sort of list would draw attention to them. I don't know how many people would go out of their way to listen to these artists. I know back in the day, like earlier on, I'd be like, oh, okay, so these are people who we feel are going to be good. So that maybe I should check them out. And I think that was kind of the idea. But, you know, if you look at this list, the only people who are still really around in making music in the sense that a lot of people follow them is really Lupe. I mean, Crook and Joel Ortiz are still making music, but, you know, to a lesser extent. Like, they aren't as big, you could say. Lupe is just kind of on a different level from them. Papoose obviously is still making music as well, but I mean, we didn't really hear much from Saigon. I mean, he recently signed to Strange Music, which was interesting to me, or their sub-label. I forgot what it was called, but you know, like, that's another thing. People always are like, "Oh, who's gonna actually stick around and last?" Because that's, I mean, it happens. It's kind of in poor taste to say that, like, "Oh, I don't think so and so is gonna last," but you know, it makes sense. I mean, it just kind of, it's inevitable. Not everyone is gonna have a long-lasting career, but you know, back then, to me, it was more focused on their lyrical ability. And that may have shifted a little bit, going a little bit into the future, because, let's see. Oh, these are just the covers, okay. Yeah, so I thought I was pulling up the actual list, but these are just the covers, and I think that gives us enough of an idea, because if they're on the cover, they're more the ones that XXL wanted to draw attention to. But then in 2000, they skipped 2008? Wow. And then 2008, they had Wale, B.O.B., Asher Roth, and Charles Hamilton. The only one who's still around really making music now is Wale. But then it makes sense to have Asher Roth and B.O.B. for sure, because they were very popular in 2009. But they weren't necessarily the most lyrical. So, even though in my mind, like, I have this idea that the list is always meant to be for, like, including people who are more lyrical and less known, like, it's kind of proving that that's not necessarily the case. Like, I personally didn't know of Wale then, but I also wasn't really looking at the freshman list then. Like, it was early enough in my listening career, I guess, that I didn't really pay attention to XXL too much. And then the year after, oh, never mind. Okay, so for 2009, they split it up quite a bit. But anyways, also in 2009, they had Ace Hood, Currency, and Cudi, and then Corey Guns, Blue, and Mickey Facts. Mickey Facts, really? Wow. But anyways, like, I mean, Ace Hood was popping then. Currency is an interesting choice because I feel like then he did have quite a bit of a buzz, and he still is solid as hell. It's just he drops so much music, people can kind of forget about it. And that's just a whole different thing where some people like to draw music constantly, some people like to take their time. Whatever works for you. I'm not going to feel any sort of way. For me, like, I mean, I'm not going to feel any sort of way in the sense that, like, oh, you should do this or you should do that instead. Like, personally, I like if maybe 1 or 2 albums a year. Beyond that, it gets a bit much, and I might not listen to the other ones, but that's just me. I know there's people who listen to every album that drops from a particular artist, but that's not what we're talking about right now. The interesting choice on this list, just in general, was Blue, because, you know, if you know Blue, he's a bit different from everyone else on this list in terms of just, like, ability, and it's an interesting choice. But then, yeah, moving on, like 2010, we had Cole, Pill, Nipsey Hussle, Wiz Khalifa, OJ the Juice Man, Freddie Gibbs, Big Sean, J Rock, Fashawn, and Donis. And this, I think, is really where I started paying more attention to the list, because I'm like, yo, these are people who have skill. Like, everyone on this list I know can rap well. So this was a weird time where we actually had artists who rapped well in the mainstream. Like, and that makes it sound so bad too. What I mean by rapping well is like they had lyrics. Like, they weren't just making radio songs. Like Cole, I mean, sure, Cole World was more poppy, I guess, but these artists are more just, they have attention, but they also don't necessarily try to go for radio songs specifically. Like, they have one or two songs like that, sure, but their ability is more just in the lyrics and less so in making pop songs. So that was where I was like, damn, this really, okay, cool. Then we get to 2011, where, so this is this is when we get like 2009 to, I think, 2013, 2014 maybe. That's when we start getting into this new age, or, well, new age for me back then, of artists who are just dope in general. Like, it's, I guess, the past generation now, like their generation removed from the current rappers. But regardless, we have Meek Mill, Crit, Sci-Hi, Lil Twist, Yellow Wolf, Fred the Godson, Mac Miller, YG, Lil B, Kendrick, and Diggy Simmons. I mean, everyone on here, to an extent, is solid. Like, they all rap well, and they were all relevant for a while. Like, the only people who I feel, I don't want to say that, but like, the only people who I feel didn't maintain the momentum, you could say, would be like Sci-Hi, or I guess maybe YG. I mean, his last couple albums I haven't really loved. Diggy Simmons, maybe. I mean, I have never really listened to him. But like, here it was a little bit different. Like, you had rappers, just like in the year before. And obviously having Kendrick is a huge deal. Like, this was very early in his career. And I mean, we know where he is today. Also, it's just very interesting to have Lil B on there. I mean, I feel like Lil B's been around forever, but I guess they considered him a freshman there. Another thing with the freshman list that I feel that they may stray away from sometimes is that, like, they want newer artists. Now, calling them a freshman, I think, comes from like artists dropping their second album, like studio album, which is their sophomore release. No one really considers their debut album as a freshman release, or no one says that. So, in my mind, what, like, the main criteria to even be considered to be a freshman is that you have one album out, and like, you haven't put out a second one yet. I think that has changed over time. Also because, like, with people like Nipsey, I think he was only putting mixtapes out at that point, so it wasn't even that he had a proper album. So it does kind of change up a little bit, and it does depend on the artist. But, there's that. Also, we had over the years, I think both Drake and Nicki Minaj said they didn't want to be on the list because they don't consider themselves freshmen. That's makes sense, because I think at that point they were just too big. Like, they're like, no, we're better than this. Like, that sounds kind of conceited, but no, they were bigger. Moving on to the next couple of years, I mean, 2012 had Future, Kid Ink, Danny Brown, French Montana, Macklemore, Don Tripp, Machine Gun Kelly, Hobson, and Iggy Azalea and Roscoe Dash. Again, like 2012 was a weird year. Like the only one that I really still listen to, I guess, because I never really listened to a whole lot of these guys except for like back in the day. I used to listen to Hobson, but 2012 I didn't listen to him anymore. I mean, he just kind of things got weird with Hobson. That's a whole nother thing I don't want to get into right now. But I didn't really listen to Future then either. But Danny Brown, like I still listen to him. Like he's one of those people. And yeah, it was just weird. Danny Brown's one of those weird guys. Like he's probably in this list the most interesting, let's say. Then in 2013, Schoolboy Q, Trinidad James, Joey Badass, Soul or Absol, Logic, Action Bronson, Kurt Cobain, Travis Scott, and Dizzy Wright, Angel Hayes, and Chief Keef. And that is a perfect list for 2013. Like that very well encapsulates that year. And you know, as I keep going through these lists, I'm realizing that there's different reasons for these things. So for this year, or 2013, that was the sound then. Like, these were the people who you just kind of expected to hear in 2013. And I can only just guess what their criteria is, and because I don't think they've ever actually said it. So, you know, I'm just going off of what each list sounds like and what my thoughts are on it. So 2014 we had Chance, Rich Homie Quan, Isaiah Rashad, Ty Dolla $ign, Lil Durk, Kevin Gates, Troy Ave, Vic Mensa, Lil Bibby, John Connor, and Jaron Benton, and August Alsina. Yeah, I mean, you know, same thing. Like, these are the artists that were really popular then. But this was a different year in the sense that I don't think that any of these artists were very, I guess, well known at that time. And it made more sense in the sense that these are artists to look for. Because at this point, Chance, I think, had dropped Acid Rap. But like that was still kind of, you know, lesser known. And then Isaiah Rashad had just signed a TD and done Sylvia Delmo. Ty Dolla $ign, I didn't even know of him back then. And then Lil Durk, it's weird because he was just kind of like ignored until the last year, which is just, it's crazy to me. Then Vic Mensa, I didn't even listen to him then. Like, everyone on this list were, to me, people that were brand new. I knew of Jaron Benton because I was listening to like more underground stuff, but like these guys I just didn't know of them, and I like that. And then 2015 we had Dejlo, Fetty Wap, Gold Link, K Camp, OG Mako, Rory, Shy Glizzy, Tink, Vince Staples, and Kid Kid. Looking back now, I don't really care for most of that list, but having Fetty Wap made sense because he was popping then. And then Vince Staples, yeah, sure, take it. Like, I'll take that. But yeah, like, that list to me was like, okay, sure, whatever. And then 2016 is where everyone has some sort of feeling about. I think that's where everyone considers it to start going downhill. I don't really care because it makes sense in that year. 2016 was a very different year for sure. Like, in that, like, there's a whole sound to 2016. But in 2016 we had Yachty, Designer, Davies, Denzel Curry, G Herbo, Uzi Vert, Lil Dicky, Anderson .Paak, 21 Savage, and Kodak Black. And at that point, the only person that I had heard of was Denzel Curry. And after that, I listened to Dave East. Actually, I listened to Anderson .Paak around that time as well. But, you know, like, this is the year that all these more, I guess, the rappers who were popular, not in 2016, but like 2018 to 2020, maybe 2017 to 2020, that's when they all really got popping. And kind of how those artists were inspired and influenced by Lil Wayne, artists now are being inspired by them. So artists now are probably going to be more inspired by Yachty, Uzi, and Kodak Black, and maybe 21 Savage as well. So it's, even though that people don't really care for this year in particular, it's very influential. Like I'm almost certain, like it has to be. And what's it called? 2017. That was their 10-year anniversary issue, which I think people also had issue with to an extent, mostly because it was kind of underwhelming. I feel because we had A Boogie, Amine, Cap G, Kamaya, Kyle, Made in TYO, Playboy Cardi, PNB Rock, Ugly God, and XXX Tentacion. Yeah, I mean, for me at the time, I didn't listen to any of them. Yeah, I didn't listen to any of those people. And now the only person that I listen to is Amine. And that's like, so kind of carrying on the same theme as the year prior. PNB, Playboy Cardi, and X, and A Boogie, I guess, too. They were getting popular at that point. They had a very solid fan base, and they are likely to influence the coming generations. Oh yeah, and then there was 2018 where everyone just did not like the list except for Jid. So we had Ski Mask, Lil Pump, Smoke Perp, Jid, Stefflon Don, Block Boy, JB, YBN Namir, Wi-Fi's Funeral, and Trippie Redd. I've talked about this in the past, but Jid is by far the best person on this list. And here you start to see everyone is basically a SoundCloud rapper at that point. And from 2016 to this point, that's kind of been the trend, at least for people to start listening to music. Like they go straight to SoundCloud rather than to streaming services or anything like that. Like it was kind of like a resurgence of the mixtape era, but SoundCloud instead, and not necessarily the music that I guess real hip hop heads listen to. Like they didn't really care for this, and I personally didn't care for it. I understand its place, but I wasn't hating on it entirely, but it wasn't great in my opinion. And 2019 is where it changed up again, and I'm like, okay, cool, I have faith in y'all again. Like it sounds bad, like, but they had DaBaby, Megan Thee Stallion, Cordae, Rico Nasty, Gunna, Comethazine, Tierra Whack, Lil Mosey, Roddy Ricch, Blueface, and YK Osiris. And this made more sense in this because they did what they did in the past. They had some artists who were more lyrically inclined, but also were popular. So DaBaby, YBN, Cordae, Megan Thee Stallion, Rico, Tierra Whack, like they were more lyrical, but they also had a lot of appeal. Like they were very popular. And then, you know, obviously the Gunna, Comethazine, Mosey, Roddy Ricch, Blueface, and YK Osiris, they all just kind of exist in their own realm as well. But they were popular too. And then 2020, just to wrap things up with all these lists, Polo G, Cowboy, NLA Chopper, Lil Keed, Chica, Lil TJ, Jack Harlow, Baby Keem, Rod Wave, Mulatto, 5Yo Foreign, and 24K Golden. Yeah, I mean, again, that list made more sense as well because you had people who can spit, but they also have radio appeal. Or just a wide appeal, I guess you could say. Now that I've gone through everything, it seems like the criteria is more like, yes, there are newer artists, for sure. They have released one album, maybe a couple mixtapes, but generally this is before their second album, I feel. Which makes sense because if we're all considering their second album to be their sophomore album, you know, first one has to be freshman, right? That's just kind of the default. Now, other than that, it seems like the criteria is just like who's popular. And I mean, that does make sense. Like, if if we're considering freshman shit, like it's high school. High school is just all about popularity, right? So yeah, like these are more in general popular artists, but they have some sort of appeal. And you can kind of think of it as an award show, like best new artist sort of thing. Like, and they just choose 10 to 12 people. Now, that's fine. Like, everyone, again, has their opinions and thoughts on who should be on that list and so on and so forth. But for me, like, I'm still trying to fully understand their exact criteria. Because the one thing I'm aware of is they have to be kind of new. And I guess they have to be popular. Other than that, like, what else do these people bring to the table? Because in my mind, like I said at the beginning, this was more meant to be a list of people who have some sort of lyrical ability or technical skill. But that's clearly not been the case all the way through. Like, there are artists that we can most definitely say don't have lyrical ability or technical skill, like in the traditional sense. They have their skill in the sense that they can make good songs or songs that are very popular, but like if you put them in a like if you're to have them freestyle, like there are some rappers who are going to do way better than the others. Or if you're supposed to, like if you have them do a pre-written, like there's going to be people who are just leagues above the others. Like it's just kind of facts. But with this year's list, we don't really get that sort of like there's a rapper on it, or like they have that lyrical ability or technical skill. So yeah, it makes sense that people are upset about this list, but in my mind this time around it was more focused on who's popular. Like these artists are all people who have some sort of appeal, and honestly like it's gonna sound dumb, but maybe they just went to TikTok and just chose artists who had some of the most popular songs on TikTok, because that's a legitimate source now. Like if you can if you can be popping on TikTok, you're gonna be popping. Like you're gonna get some money and a lot of attention for sure. So I mean maybe that's what they did. I'm sure that was part of it, because like I said, TikTok's a huge part of the culture now. But you know, it's hard to say like exactly what else they used. If it were up to me, it would be more along the lines of, can you be lyrical and have wide appeal? Like you have to be able to check multiple boxes. Like can you be someone like Kendrick Lamar, where you have these really dope songs and with a message? Like I always bring up swimming pools, but swimming pools is a prime example of making a catchy and popular song, but having a real meaning to it. Like it's a song about drinking and like just all the negative parts of it, but it sounds like a drinking song, like a party song. Like there's a lot more to it, and I don't feel like a lot of artists can do something like that. Like there are a lot of people who can, of course, but it's very hard, I feel, to make a popular song, but that's popular in the sense that it's gonna get the attention of the general public and then all the people who really like lyrics. Like that is really hard. Like, and very few artists can do that, I feel. I know I bring it up every so often, but like lyricists are not the greatest songwriters. Like, and songwriter being like, you have a good verse that sounds good, you have a good beat. The beat is like the biggest thing for the general public, and have a chorus that sounds good as well. Like that is hard. So if you can do that and then still get just wide appeal, like that's huge. Like, there are definitely artists who are lyrical and can make good choruses and good songs, but it's not like, it's not going to have the widest appeal. Like, there are definitely artists like that, but yeah, it's just difficult. But yeah, regarding this year's list, I don't have anyone who I would have put on there instead, because in all honesty, I don't really listen to a whole lot of new artists. Just because I don't have the time. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, if I see someone who people are talking about, like, frequently, yeah, I'm gonna listen to him. Like Chris Patrick. Like, he's dope. I'm gonna listen to him, and he's fairly new. Red Veil, the guys on AG Club. Like, those are probably the newest artists that I would listen to. But you know, I'm sure there's more. Because, like, this is another thing that I talk about every so often, but like, there's always good music out there. You just kind of have to put in the work to find it. Like, so like, all these people who are complaining like, oh, the golden age is over, or oh man, today's rap and music is just garbage. Like, no, it's not. It's different, like, in terms of what's readily available, but the stuff that you may actually like is still there. So there's that, at least. I think I'm gonna stop talking about the XXL list now, because I've been going for 33 minutes on this. So yeah, let's switch gears a little bit. This is the portion where I just kind of go through some of the news things. So last week, it wasn't crazy, but shit, we'll just start off with that. So Isaiah Rashad dropped a new song, and it was announced like 7 days ago now, that, on Monday, that Headshots for Locals, which was his apparently favorite song, was going to drop on Friday. It dropped on Friday. It's an amazing song. I did a breakdown for that if you want to check that out. And what's crazy is, so you know how with my breakdowns, if you watch them, I guess, the one thing that I always say is like, let me know if I missed something or misinterpret anything. Isaiah Rashad hit me up and told me what I missed. Like, because, you know, I didn't know. And that's insane to me. I'm just a regular guy. Like, my God. Like, that was very exciting to me. I don't want to dwell on that for too long, but it happened just last night, so I'm still in disbelief. Anyways, in other news, Day in Vegas was announced, and like, their lineup was announced. So mainly the people to look for, because I'm just going to talk about the headliners, because there's way too many people otherwise. Headliners being Kendrick, Travis Scott, and Tyler, the Creator. Now, that's dope. And I guess I can talk about the people who are also like just below them, because they have big names. So under Kendrick was DaBaby, YG, Ari Lennox, Polo G. Under Travis was Lil Baby, Doja Cat, Sweetie, and Baby Keem. And under Tyler was SZA, Uzi, Snow Allegra, and Don Toliver. And to me, the biggest thing is Kendrick's headline list. And that's only because on that list, or on the flyer, I guess you could say, under his name, it says One Night in Vegas from Section 80 to Damn. So it's safe to assume that his album probably isn't going to come out before Day in Vegas. But on top of that, like, when is Day in Vegas? November 12th to 14th. So it's a good chance that he's not dropping his album before then, because otherwise maybe they would have included it, or maybe they wouldn't even said Section 80 to Damn. But it's also very interesting that he's going to go from Section 80 to Damn. Like, that's a lot of music to cover. What's going to be on his set list? I'm genuinely curious. That's going to be dope. Moving on from that. Well, speaking of Tyler, I guess, because he was on that list, he announced last week that his next album, Call Me If You Get Lost, is coming this Friday, June 25th. He dropped the track Lumberjack, which I did a breakdown for as well, so if you want to check that one out. But I have no idea where this is going. It sounds like it's going to be just a pure rap album based on the cover being like an homage to the ODB album. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We'll probably get another single before the end of the week, assuming that's what people do. But yeah, that's crazy. I'm also planning to talk about how album rollouts have changed in the future. So not next week because I'm going to do my favorite albums of the year so far, but maybe the week after. Vince Staples dropped Law of Averages, which is a dope song too, and his album is coming out on July 9th. Logic decided to come back out of retirement. I mean, no one's surprised. I guess he has an album coming at some point because he just dropped a song titled Intro. Yeah. And then, I mean, there's a bunch of, honestly, not a whole lot of music dropped that I listened to. Yeah, there wasn't any like albums that I listened to, in all honesty. But the main thing to talk about was who has the best album named Haram, and why is it Arm & Hammer and not Gold Link? But yeah, I didn't really listen to anything else, so I'm not even going to mention it. But I think we'll end it at that because this is going on much longer than it needs to be. So I forgot what I was going to say. So anyways, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this year's freshman list, because obviously everyone has their opinion and everyone's entitled to an opinion. Also, if you have other news that I should have touched on or other albums that I should listen to, let me know as well. Also, like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.